Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just talked about the ACC and a big time case out there with Florida State. They have decided to try that case in North Carolina, so a huge win for the ACC in those battles. We will definitely keep you updated with everything happening there. But let's jump into spring games. Actually, before we jump into spring games, I do want to remind you all we get tons of questions and comments throughout the show. And the best way for you all to see your questions on the screen and we can have a fun back and forth here is to use the link at the bottom of the screen, gsmcpodcast.net. It's a huge help not only to us here at the network, but to you all. You get to see your questions or comments on the screen. I get to react to them, and we get to have a fun back and forth here. But let's jump into spring games because there were three ones that were absolutely huge on Saturday. Three teams that everyone is going to be watching very, very closely, and that is Clemson, Auburn, and North Carolina State. Now, let's start with Clemson because I feel like that's where a lot of the attention was on Saturday. Let's start with a little bit of bad injury luck. They had their center go down, their number one center, which has been a 4-year player for them, a huge piece to that offensive line, went down with what looked like an ankle injury from what I saw. Harris Sewell came in and played most of the game, did very well, but they're definitely going to want their starter back, obviously. It totally makes sense. Linthicum, I believe, is his name. I couldn't quite hear the broadcast quite clearly enough, but they're definitely going to want him back because this running game is going to be super important, especially with someone like Phil Maffa, who is a in-between-the-tackles type runner. Will definitely run down someone's throat, but you need good offensive line play to make that happen. So that's definitely something to watch. We'll keep you updated as kind of injury news comes out on him. And then the show of the day was Bryant Wesco, the guy that everyone was kind of watching, the guy that everyone wanted to talk about for the majority of the day. He had a beautiful touchdown catch over the shoulder with a really, really good throw from Trent Pierman, who had an awesome day. He is the backup quarterback there behind Clay Klubnik. He had a long touchdown run, definitely has a little bit of athletic ability about him. Juked out a linebacker and took it about 78 yards, I think. So he's someone that if you're worried about Cade Klubnik going into the season, if you're worried he might get, even if he goes down with an injury or something, Trent Pierman looks very, very confident in that field and in this offense. So it'll be very interesting to see if his services are needed, and if they are, how well he adapts to that. But one of the things that I think everyone noticed going through this game is Dabo Swinney is absolutely going to be in media when he retires. This dude was all over the field. He was so excited to be interviewing former players and current players and coaches, and he was all over the place. So I think that is definitely what his plan will be once his time at Clemson, South Carolina is done. But he's not necessarily going anywhere anytime soon, and I don't think Clemson fans want him to go anywhere. Another big thing that happened during this game, Jamal Anderson, a linebacker, had a pick six off Christopher Vizina, where he just straight up went up and grabbed it from him. And he is actually the son of the legend that invented the Dirty Bird. So big fan of him. But I think he actually got another one, but it was called back for an offside penalty, although I didn't know if it was offsides, but that's besides the point. Another linebacker in this group that just looks remarkable. Wade Woodaz was huge for them this weekend. He was someone that looked really, really confident in his position. I didn't see a ton of Barrett Carter. Not sure how much he played. Doesn't need to play a lot, obviously, but this linebacker room as a whole looks like a Clemson linebacker room. Kobe McLeod, the brother of the Clemson legend, if you will, Ray McLeod, who's now at the Atlanta Falcons, had a really good day, made a number of really good plays. So I think this linebacker room is about as good as you could have hoped, especially with someone like Jeremiah Trotter walking out the door. You have Sammy Brown walking in the door, which is absolutely huge as a very talented young freshman. Made a couple of plays in this game, definitely looked really good, but Wade Woodaz was definitely the MVP on the defensive side of the ball for sure. He was someone that was just all over the field the entire game. But let's get to the people that everyone is worried about for this team, and I think it's the wide receivers. I think that's the group that Clemson fans, that ACC fans in general are looking at the most when they talk about the Clemson Tigers. The wide receiver is not necessarily the position that it was, even 5 years ago at Clemson, where you had guys that were NFL talents all over the field, literally littered, and it slowly kind of come to an end, and not necessarily to the degree that some people will make you believe. And especially if you watch Saturday, you do not necessarily worry about their wide receiver talent, but it's definitely not up to the standards that it was when they were on that remarkable run. But I talked about Bryant Westco. He is a huge freshman that is going to need to make plays for them, although I think they have other guys in that room that are going to be able to take a little bit of pressure off him. Adam Randall had a very, very good day. He's a very physical, big wide receiver that is someone that I think Cade Klubnik will be very, very confident throwing to, because strong hands, big body, can do a ton of really, really good things. I think he's someone that'll be huge for them. You have guys like Antonio Williams, who is a very experienced guy, never quite hit the strides that I think Clemson fans were expecting from him, but still very talented and has every ability to have a big-time year this year, especially with other guys around him that kind of take that pressure off. And then you have someone like Jake Burningstool, who I didn't see a lot on Saturday, which makes sense, but him at tight end is absolutely huge. He's someone that I think is going to be an absolutely huge addition, or not addition, but is going to be huge for this passing offense and opening up doors for these talented wide receivers to get the ball in their hands a little bit easier and get into open field and make some of the plays that they're just really equipped to make. And I think some of the big-time takeaways from this, the Orange D-line, which I believe was the number one defense, if I'm not mistaken, was kind of dominating the two-team offensive line. You're definitely going to need health at that offensive line. We talked about the center going down earlier, so health is going to be a huge thing for Clemson if the spring game is any indication of how that second-team O-line is going to hold up, because it was rough pretty much from start to finish. Now, it could be not a big deal. It could be a huge deal, depending on how much you think this Clemson D-line is going to be disruptive, because as we know, this is kind of a zero-sum game, especially on the line of scrimmage. You never really know who's playing well and who's playing bad. Is it a mix of both? It usually is, but at the end of the day, I think Clemson O-line might be a place where if Dabo's going to, compromise and go into the portal, that might be a place where he does it. Another place that he might do it is the back end of this defense. I was not super impressed with the back end of this defense. It felt like a lot of the stuff was fairly easy for the quarterbacks, a lot of quick passes, which makes it a little bit tougher, obviously. But even the ones that were a little bit downfield, it just looked like the corners weren't quite on the same level as the wide receivers. So that's another position where if Dabo really wants to have the elite team that Clemson has had in past years, I think there's some things that he's going to have to do in the portal. Now, will he do those things? If history is to be trusted, no, but I guess we'll find out. I definitely think it was an impressive showing from this team. I think Clemson fans have a lot to be excited about, but there are some holes that need to be fixed, and I think they have a great opportunity to fix them this month, and if they don't, then it could define the upcoming season. But for right now, I think if you're a Clemson fan, you have to feel really good about that performance, really good about where you sit with everything. But let's get on over to Auburn, Alabama, and talk about this one. This was a little bit different of a setup. It was offense against defense, where defense started with 27 points, and the offense had 4 10-minute quarters to catch up to them. Essentially just score as many points as possible. If you, every drive, I believe, started on the 25, and they would have to make their way down. And so let's get to some of the offensive players that absolutely shined, and it's the guy we've been talking about. It's the guy that everyone has been talking about, it feels like, in Cam Coleman. He is an absolute beast. He is someone that I knew he was good. I knew he was going to be a big part of this offense. I knew a lot about this kid, no doubt about it. And then you turn on the tape and you turn on this game and he makes that incredible diving catch, or he makes that remarkable touchdown play at the end of the game, and you just say, okay, this kid's a little bit different. There are certain kids that pop out every year that just are on a different level than some other kids, than some of the players on your current roster, and that's what Cam Coleman is. He's just remarkable. He's someone that absolutely is going to jump off the page this year. He is someone that they're going to need to jump off the page if they're going to want to do the things that they're capable of doing. It's definitely going to be a weird year. 2 new coordinators on both sides of the ball, so that adds something a little bit different to the plate. DJ Durkin coming over, taking over for this defense, and they did a really good job for most of the day. Really dominated the line of scrimmage most of the time. This Auburn O-line is less than inspiring if you're a Tiger fan, but definitely still time to address that in the portal. So I wouldn't worry too much, but as of right now, it doesn't look too pretty. I'll put it that way. I think this team is in a very interesting position because they have playmakers. They have guys that are at wide receiver, at running back with Jacquez Hunter, and then you have someone like Rivaldo Fairweather at tight end. You can do a ton of different things this year. Auburn's in such a weird position where a lot of people, you look at the roster, it's not the greatest roster top to bottom. You look at the quarterback play from a year ago with Peyton Thorne, it wasn't great. Although the last time that Peyton Thorne had the weapons that he'll have this year was Michigan State when he had a 10-win season and had the best season of his college career. So it'll be really interesting. I think this team is definitely getting better. I don't think there's any two ways about that. This whole roster just looks stronger. They look like they practice a little bit harder than past iterations of this team, and they look more confident, which is a lot of the battle in college football when you have young kids who are doing this, some for the first time. If they have elite level confidence, you can do a ton of things with him, and someone like Cam Coleman definitely has elite level confidence, but I think there's a ton to like about this team. They did have a remarkable day kicking the ball. Towns Magoo nailed all the kicks. I believe he kicked 7 kicks during this game. So the offense was, not great at finishing in the red zone, but at the end of the day, got the win on that crazy play by Cam Coleman at the end. But Towns Magoo hit a 58-yarder for the offense, so absolutely huge. He's someone that is just remarkable. He is a difference maker, and when you're in the SEC and when you're playing these games against these really tough defenses, when you have 3 points the second you get inside the 30-yard line, it's something that not a lot of teams have and not a lot of teams can say with a lot of confidence. So I think this is a remarkable, huge thing for Auburn going into this year. I think, as we know, special teams, special players, special plays, shout out Sketch, but I think this is a huge boost to their confidence in terms of just knowing that they'll have an offense. There's not a ton of huge hype around this team in terms of making crazy runs, but at the end of the day, when you can make kicks, people underestimate just how important that is for keeping the momentum on your offensive side and keeping points going on the board. And although, you don't want to trade 7 for 3, every now and then getting a 3, getting on the board, getting that confidence rolling is huge, especially for a team like this who, as we talked about, can go any number of directions. I think they could win 9 games. I really do think that's in the cards for this team. I think Peyton Thorne could have a 2021 type season. They could shock the SEC, win games that they're not supposed to. I think they could, work out the line of scrimmage troubles and be able to at least do enough to keep these guys open. And then I think in a lot of these games, to be totally honest with you, they will have the best skill player on the field in Cam Coleman. So I think you can do a lot of different things. You could also go 6-6 or 5-7 and battle line of scrimmage troubles all season. Peyton Thorne could have another lackluster season, and you could be sitting there wondering kind of what happened at the end of it. But I do think Hugh Freeze is executing a plan. I think he's executing it incredibly well thus far. And while 2024 might not be the year that they absolutely burst onto the scene, it's coming. This Auburn team looks a lot more confident, a lot more well-built than they were even a year ago, and I'm sure that'll only continue. So while, there might be a little bit of worry around Auburn about this upcoming year, and I think there is some optimism for sure, but you're going to have to thread the needle a little bit in terms of getting all you can out of the big-time players and not falling victim to some of the things that have plagued you in the past, like penalties and offensive line play and the little things that really make a huge difference. So Auburn, kind of a mixed bag. I think a ton of things to be very, very excited about. If it's not 2024, I think 2025 is a place where I could see Auburn being a SEC contender because Hugh Freeze is fantastic at building programs, and that's not going to change anytime soon. But finally, let's get into NC State. It was a red and white game, classic type of game that we have come used to, and Kevin Concepcion is incredible. He was all over the field for the Wolfpack. He was someone that absolutely showed his ability, had an end around that he took for about 25 yards. He's someone that I think had to be the guy for the Wolfpack this past year, and it honestly didn't necessarily handcuff him, but it made him have to do things that I think he would be more dynamic in a different role. And I think that role is using him in those type of situations, kind of a gadget type guy from the slot where you can have end arounds, have jet sweeps, have different types of things with him where you just get the ball to his hands in space and let him do his thing. Another guy that showed out, CJ Bailey, the backup quarterback, showed his athletic ability. Would not be surprised at all if we saw a ton of packages with him running the ball because an athlete like that is going to be really, really tough to keep off the field. They had really, really good O-line play throughout this game. What that means, again, we don't really know, but definitely an encouraging sign for this offense and Grayson McCall in particular. Ethan McDowell is a inside reporter for NC State, and he was very impressed with the newcomers, as was I. Grayson McCall doing what he does, executing an offense to an elite degree. Noah Rogers and Justin Joly were two guys that popped up big time in this game, and then Jordan Waters might have been the player of the game. But Noah Rogers, the guy that came over from Ohio State as a wide receiver, big time commit. He had 7 catches, 133 yards, so he was all over the field. He is going to be an absolute difference maker and definitely the guy that would take the most pressure off Kevin Concepcion and let him be the dynamic player that he's capable of. Overall, I think this was an impressive outing from all the people that it needed to be an impressive outing from. Grayson McCall was huge. Seeing all these players, seeing Noah Rogers catch balls at the clip that he did, seeing Justin Joly play the way he did, and then Jordan Waters might have been the player of the day. I think all of that is super important to NC State. They are a team that is as dangerous as they come in the ACC. I think they could be this year's Louisville with the transfer portal class that they brought in. Jordan Waters was incredible for Duke last year. He could be better for NC State this year. The O-line play is going to be huge for that, but he's someone that is ready to take that next step forward and not only be a good running back in the ACC, but be a good running back in the country. So very excited to see what this team can put together. I was super impressed, came out with a higher opinion of the Wolfpack than I had going in, and I was already pretty excited about this team and pretty into this team going into the offseason, but they checked every box that I possibly could have wanted them to check, and the defense is definitely going to need some work. I think transfer portal is where they'll be pretty active, if I'm being totally honest. But at the end of the day, if you wanted that offense to shine, they shined about as much as you possibly could have hoped. So tons of things to fill out, obviously, but good reviews pretty much across the board from those 3 teams. Auburn, a little bit more of a mixed bag, but tons of things to be excited about, especially Cam Coleman and that remarkable freshman wide receiver. I mean, this freshman wide receiver class is just out of this world. Maybe I'll do a segment in this next couple of days about that because it's unlike something I've really ever seen, if I'm being totally honest. So very excited about this upcoming class. I'm very excited about the upcoming spring games that are coming up these next couple of weeks. The next 2 weeks are off the walls, so we will get you updated on all of those the next, throughout this week leading up to the April 13th games, and then April 20th, another kind of big day with a ton of teams in action. So we'll break all that down when the time comes, but we're going to take our second break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the transfer portal and some of the needs for the top teams in college football, and we'll do this kind of throughout the week, so definitely will be a recurring segment, but we'll break down kind of the top teams as I see it right after this.